Okay, we're going to do a mini lesson on trophic levels. And we're going to keep the trophic levels as relating to the energy flow through a community. We can take the trophic levels, as you see, into many different forms, but through this presentation, we'll really focus on how the energy flows through the community. So first off, we should talk about what is a pyramid. What you're going to see on this presentation really isn't truly a pyramid, but we should understand some of the basic properties of pyramids. Whether you think of a pyramid as something from math, or whether you think of it as the Egyptian pyramids, they're all built the same way. When you look at a pyramid, it is a three-dimensional object. It has a wide bottom working its way to narrow tops. Each level gets successively smaller. If we went to build a pyramid, we would start with a lot of pieces on the bottom, and we'd end up very little pieces at the top. And I think of this as building with Legos. We'd have a lot of Legos in a square on the bottom, and as we work our way to the next level, we get less and less. In fact, one of the basic principles of pyramids is that the bottom, a given level will hold all the levels above it in terms of numbers. So that is something you should consider as we talk about the pyramids, as we show the trophic levels, as this pyramid is a way of relating a bunch of different things, and it's based on what a pyramid really truly looks like. In terms of trophic levels, trophic meaning feeding, the relationship of what eats what, again, coming back to the idea that we introduced back in food chains and food webs. There are 5 basic levels of trophism, as we'll see here in terms of relationships. And they're all, the trophic levels are set up to see the relationship of relative amounts of energy, matter, and number of individuals, and we can look at each one separately. And remember, I did say that is based on any given food web or food chain. So we will apply trophic levels rather than purposely give you one given example. So keep that in mind that we're not generalizing this. We're basing it. It's based on one given food chain or a given food web. So here's what I was talking about. Now this is a triangle, not a pyramid, but we are going to use this pyramid or this triangle to represent our trophic level pyramid. I'm going to talk a bunch of things. We'll add things to it as we go through this presentation, but this is the main diagram that we'll be using for the next few slides. So the trophic level, we'll start at the bottom at the foundation piece. And at the foundation of the trophic level, if we're dealing with energy, we need the living things that take in the energy from the sun. And we're going to call that trophic level the producer level. And that's where our producers are. Now, producers are those that are autotrophic. And an example of an autotroph would be field grass of some sort, or a tree, or some flowers, or shrubs. Those are our producers. And in the food chain, that's going to be the basis of our food chain. This is where all the energy comes in from the sun. It holds 100% of the energy. Now, in terms of, we look at number of individuals, it also has the total number of individuals in a community for producers. This is where all of them, or where a lot of them are. I shouldn't say all of them, but this is where all of them, or a majority tend to be. So we have the producer level in there now, and we build on top of that. Now, the next level up will be the ones that eat the producers, and we call those things that eat the producer primary consumers, or first order consumers. They are the ones that will eat the producers. They're the first ones that get the energy. So in my example, I looked at the grass being there as a grasshopper being one of the examples that we use. So we'll shrink this down, and we'll put that on the pyramid here so that you can see that an example of a primary consumer will be something that eats the grass. Now, in terms of like types of consumers, what types of consumers will be here? These will be mainly herbivores. We also do see omnivores here as well, because omnivores do eat plants as well. So it's going to be one of those 2 types of consumers mainly at that level, although we'll also see some decomposers will be there as well when we look at our individual food chains. So that's the first 2 levels of the trophic level pyramid. So we have primary consumers and producers on there now. So what's next? The next level up will be those that eat the primary consumers. Those that eat the primary consumers will be the secondary consumers. So we're starting to see that this is very ordered. Now, in this case, I was looking for something that ate the grasshopper, so I chose a frog. And so let's shrink down our frog and put her on the chart as well. So that's the secondary consumers. Secondary consumers are going to be consumed, the primary consumers. Again, what kind of, or what type of consumer could be here? Could a herbivore be here? No, it could not. We'll see these as being carnivores, and we'll see them as being omnivores. And I always like to say that decomposers could be there as well, because when things die at the primary level, decomposers will get them in that food chain, in that particular food chain. They will be our secondary consumers. And again, as we look at numbers here, producers had the most numbers. As the energy moved up to the primary consumers, there just can't be as many primary consumers as there are producers, both in terms of available energy and the fact that we can't outnumber the producers, and same goes for the secondary consumers. So we start to see this pyramid relationship really take hold as we move up. So there's our two levels now. We're going to add the third order, or the tertiary consumers. They're the ones that are going to eat the secondary consumers, and so I chose a garter snake. You can see the garter snake is eating the frog, and so they are a tertiary consumer in this particular food chain. And again, if I put up type of consumers, I'd be looking at carnivores, and that's where the majority of the tertiary consumers will be carnivores, although definitely can see some omnivores in here as well as we start to see more commonly in tertiary is the addition of decomposers. Again, not as many tertiary consumers as there are secondary consumers, so we can't outnumber them. And finally, the last level that we're going to add in here is our quaternary consumers. And typically speaking, we're going to see this is where all our decomposers are going to be. So here's my frog who died and is now being decomposed. I could have found a snake. I just couldn't find a good picture of that. So I just have the frog that's decomposing. It's being decomposed by our bacteria in this case, or maybe it's a fungus, or maybe it's a maggot of some sort, an earthworm, or any of those secondary decomposers. So we also call them detritivores. What else do we see up here? Again, remember, we do see this is mainly our decomposers, but we will see at the top of food chains our higher level carnivores, and sometimes our omnivores. And that's our trophic level pyramid in terms of numbers and order. Now, what I said at the beginning is that we would look at and kind of focus on how energy gets transferred here. So how is energy represented on this pyramid? Remember, the sun is our main source of our energy here on Earth, and the sun isn't used by all organisms. The only organisms that can use the sun is going to be our producers. So in terms of energy, they hold all of the energy that comes down to Earth. They're the ones that have all of it to begin with. So they have 100% of the available energy at that level. Now, when we interact with the primary consumers in this case, or the primary consumers get eaten by the secondary consumers, it's not an efficient transfer of energy. So there is some energy that gets lost along the way. So as this gets eaten by the primary consumer, we lose energy. Okay, so we lose energy. So we lose 90% of the energy there. So the primary consumers only have 10% of the original energy that came in into the producers available to them. And as we transfer the energy up through the levels, we continue to lose 90%. So this will be 1% of the energy left. Again, we kick out 90%, and I will again, I'll just put a negative 90. And most of that energy here is lost as heat. So again, maybe we should note that that's heat energy being lost there, and so on and so forth. So as we move up the pyramid, we see that there's less energy available at any given level. So that's 0.1% of that original energy that that began with the producers, and then finally we end up with the tertiary consumers getting very, very little of the original energy. It explains why each level has to eat the way it does, how much it has to eat, how many individuals can be supported at that level in the pyramid. So again, it's not efficient, but that's the way life is. And again, it sets up this relationship of feeding levels. You'll have to understand that that 10% rule is a very important rule in terms of how ecosystems are set up and what can live there and what has to live there in order to for the ecosystem to work. So anyways, that is a brief lesson on trophic levels, again, in terms of focusing on the energy transferred and the relationships within those levels.